Rama Rama Hare Hare. Jai Shri Shri Radha Madhava Ki, Shri Prabhupada Ki, Jai Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Canto 4, Chapter 10, Text 6 through 9. But we will chant together only 6. So, please repeat. Dadmau Shankam Brihadbahu Kam Dishas Chanunadhayan Yeno Dvigna Drisha Kshatar Upadevyo Trashan Brishan Dadmau Shankam Brihadbahu Kam Dishas Chanunadhayan Yeno Dvigna Drishakshatar Upadevyo Trasan Brisham Dadmau Shankam Brihadbahu Kam Dishas Chanunadhayan Yeno Dvigna Drishakshatar Upadevyo Trasan Brisham Dadmau Shankam Brihadbahu Kam Dishas Chanunadhayan Drishakshatar Upadevyo Trasan Brisham Dadmau Shankam Brihadbahu Kam Dishas Chanunadhayan Yeno Dvigna Drishakshatar Upadevyo Trasan Brisham. Dadmau Shankam Brihadbahu Kam Dishas Chanunadhayan Yeno Dvigna Drishakshatar Upadevyo Trasan Brisham. Word for word. Dadmau, blue. Shankam, conch shell. Brihadbahu, the mighty armed. Kam, the sky. Disha cha, and all directions. Anunadayan, causing to resound. Yena, by which. Udvigna drishaha, appeared very anxious. Kshataha, my dear Vidura. Upadevyaha, the wives of the yakshas. Atrasan, became frightened. Brisham, greatly. Translation. Maitreya continued, my dear Vidura, as soon as Dhruva Maharaj reached Alakapuri, he immediately blew his conch shell, and the sound reverberated throughout the entire sky and in every direction. The wives of the yakshas became very much frightened. From their eyes, it was apparent that they were full of anxiety. So we'll move on to text 7 and go through all 3 texts. but I will just chant through, and then we'll do word for word in translation together. So, Tato nishkramya bhalina upadeva mahabataha ashahantas tan ninadam abhipetur udhayudaha. Translation: O hero Vidura, the greatly powerful heroes of the Yakshas, unable to tolerate the resounding vibration of the concha of Dhruva Maharaj, came forth from their city with weapons and attacked Dhruva. Text 8. Satan apatato vira ugradanva maharataha ekaikam yugapat sarvan ahan banaistribihi. Dhruva Maharaj, who was a great charioteer and certainly a great bowman also, immediately began to kill them by simultaneously discharging arrows 3 at a time. Text 9. Devai lalata lagnastair ishubi sarva evahi matva nirastam atmanam asamshan karma tasya tat. Translation: When the heroes of the Yakshas saw that all their heads were being thus threatened by Dhruva Maharaj, they could very easily understand their awkward position, and they concluded that they would certainly be defeated. But, as heroes, they lauded the action of Dhruva Maharaj. Purport: This spirit of fighting in a sporting attitude is very significant in this verse. The Yakshas were severely attacked. Dhruva Maharaj was their enemy, but still, upon witnessing the wonderful heroic acts of Dhruva Maharaj, they were very pleased with him. This straightforward appreciation of an enemy's prowess is a characteristic of a real Kshatriya spirit. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So I thought I would talk a little bit about each verse and then move on to other points. So first we have text 6, right? It's describing the conch shell, the Dhruva Maharaj blew. We have so many different instances that you see of different conch shells being blown at different battles and the reaction of the demons, right? Sometimes it's described that the wives of the demons had miscarriages when they heard the powerful sound. In Mahabharata, the amount of conch shells that were blown, not only normal conch shells, but celestial conch shells, right? We have Paundra, right? We have the one of Krishna, Ananta Vijaya with Yudhishthira. Krishna's one was? Krishna's was? What's Krishna's conch shell's name? Panchajanya, thank you so much. Panchajanya Hrishikesha, right? Devadatta Dhananjaya. So then, right, all these conch shells, Devadatta, Panchajanya, Paundra, all these different conch shells that were blown were from different demons, different demigods. So these conch shells weren't normal conch shells. And when they were blown, the amount of power that it had, many people in the battlefield of Kurukshetra would just faint just from hearing the sound of the conch shell before the war even started. So these descriptions, when it says Dhadmal, right, he resounded the conch shell, it was very, very powerful sound. And so immediately those yakshas who were meant to fight immediately went out with their weapons, and the wives of the yakshas were very fearful hearing the sound of the conch shell. Right? So the power of the conch shell we hear every day, when we hear it, it's announcing the Lord's presence, it's also purifying us with its sound. Yeah, so we should take that as a blessing. Then in the second verse, it describes, they came forth from their city after hearing the resounding, unable to bear the sound of the conch shell. Obviously, Dhruva Maharaj wasn't blowing it once. He just kept on blowing it until they came out. They were so disturbed by the reverberation of this wonderful conch shell that they came out of their city ready to fight. Then in the 8th verse, it's described, Dhruva Maharaj is described as a Maharata. So I thought I would talk a little bit about the divisions of Kshatriyas in war and why they're called Maharatis, Atiratis, Ratis. There's different titles given. I'll talk a little slower, sorry. There's different titles given to each warrior according to their prowess, according to their knowledge, according to their potential in a battle, and of course their experience. So I'll get back to this towards the end after we talk about the purport, right? Prabhupada talks about the purport for text 9, And he says that this fighting spirit, right, this fighting spirit that the Kshatriyas had was something very significant about their nature, Kshatriya nature. That even if it was an enemy, even if it was a battle and they were meant to kill the person, they could still appreciate good qualities. They could still appreciate the prowess of an enemy. They could still deal in a very human and normal way of dealing. They didn't become, how would I say, degraded in their nature. This you see in many other places, in Mahabharata, in Ramayana, and so many different stories of the Puranas, where battles were taken up, where they were even encouraging the opponents, saying, yes, very good, give more, shoot more arrows, fight more with more prowess. Because they enjoyed this activity of fighting. Not only that, they were so chivalrous in their being that they didn't fear their defeat. They weren't sore losers, as we say, They were very happy to see someone else excelling in whatever they did, and they would appreciate that. In Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, we have the story of Vritrasura, right? Vritrasura was preaching to Indra to do his duty. He was encouraging him, no, you have to kill me. It is your duty. And he basically gave him a whole Bhagavatam class about how he's in ignorance. He has to come out of this ignorance and kill me. So we see this is real chivalry and real prowess. There's also the story of Kumbhakarna. Kumbhakarna, he was given the boon of Brahma that after 6 months, when he woke up on that day, when he was awake, he was invincible. But Ravana, out of his desperate nature, he had to wake him up before that special day. And so Kumbhakarna, when he woke up and he went to see Ravana, Ravana told him, it's time for you to fight. You have to fight with this human who came, right? And Kumbhakarna preached to him. And he says, what are you doing? All this because of a lady. You should have just gave him back, gave her back, and gave this whole preach to Ravana about how he's in Maya and he's acting incorrectly, and that now I'm going to die because of your lust. I'm going to die today. And he knew it. He went into the battle fully knowing that it was Krishna's arrangement. Obviously he didn't think Krishna. He said all providence and the will of the world. And he said that because of your lust, now I'm going to die, and that's fine. But I want you to know that what you're doing is incorrect. Right? But he went into the battle with full enthusiasm, with fully expecting to die, but at the same time with full spirit of fighting and full encouragement. He went there and he fought with all the monkeys, and he fought with Lakshman, he fought with Hanuman, and then knowing ultimately he was going to die. So he had that nature, that Kshatriya nature in him, that even though he knew the inevitable was coming, he still gave it his all. So this is something we can learn from 2 points. One is that it doesn't matter the outcome. The Akshas, it says that they're clearly going to be defeated. Still they continued fighting. Still they continued doing. So when we see something that we have to do, some service that we have to perform, or some like getting over our nartas or destroying our false ego or different things, it seems a task that's impossible to do. And we know that we're fully at the mercy of the Lord, but we still need to give it our all. We need to give it our 100%. And then the Krishna will, seeing that we are giving our 100%, he will give what's left, what's needed to perform that activity. Right? That's one point we can learn from this purport. And another point is that we should learn to appreciate good qualities in everyone, even those that we see as enemies. Even though as devotees we shouldn't have. We have still devotees that we may not bond so well with, we don't rub the right way, we have difficulties, but by seeing good qualities in those devotees and appreciating them, we will learn to begin to appreciate more and more qualities in them, eventually having a proper relationship with that person. So it's even a way of changing an enemy to a great friend by appreciating good qualities. And so we should see that in everyone. And what to speak of people that we don't like, people that we do like, we should make it a regular practice of seeing, appreciating, and vocalizing that appreciation, showing our appreciation in a way so that person feels appreciated, right? Just seeing someone, oh, that's a nice person, or that person is doing something nice, is just the beginning. You can show your appreciation for what he's doing, and that person will be more enlivened to continue his activity, just like Dhruva Maharaj. The Akshas were lauding him. The translation for lauding, I searched it up because I understood it's encouraging, but it's even praising, loudly praising the activities of Dhruva Maharaj. So the Yakshas were like, wow, that's so cool, that's so wonderful, keep going. And they were lauding him, they were encouraging him to continue doing what he's doing. And what was he doing? Killing them. But they appreciated that because of how amazingly he was doing it. So by appreciating someone's good qualities or good activities, the amazing service he did, the amazing enthusiasm he has in his kirtan and whatever he's doing, by appreciating that, it will make him do it more. So it's a good practice for those devotees who you do like and those devotees who you don't like. It's something that we should do. So this is something small that I thought we could learn from this wonderful purport. Now, to get into the nitty-gritty facts. It's described that Dhruva Maharaj, right? Ugra Danva Maharata. It's describing him as a Maharata, a Maharati. So in Mahabharata and Ramayana, there's a division in Dhanurveda of the different types of warriors. You have different types of chariot warriors. Before chariot warriors, you have the foot soldiers, you have those on elephants, you have those on horses, you have those who are in a group, right? There's different divisions. Then once they enter into a chariot, the chariots are reserved for those warriors that are very powerful, right? So the first division are called ratis, those who are on a rat, on a chariot. We know from Ratha Yatra, rat, right? And so one who's on a rati warrior, is considered one who can fight with 5,000 foot soldiers at once. Yeah, so that's not a small task. That's a big task. And it's not that during the day he will fight with 5,000. No, simultaneously he will fight with an army of 5,000, right? Then the next division is atirati, right? So an atirati can fight with 12 ratis. So that's 12 times 5,000. That's a huge amount of warriors he can fight with, right? So it means he's able to fight with 60,000 soldiers at the same time. That's an atirati. It's a very powerful warrior, right? Then a Maharati is considered equal to 12 atiratis. So it's 12 times 5,000. So it's a huge amount of warriors he can fight with, right? 720,000 warriors he can fight at once. So this was Dhruva Maharaj. Extremely powerful warrior he could fight. And these aren't just any warriors he's fighting yakshas. Yakshas are superhuman. They're not normal human beings. They have the mystical powers. They have super strength, right? So many different abilities they have, and he was fighting them alone, right? A Maharati warrior is also considered the master of all kinds of weaponry, combat skills, and tactics. So not only is he able to fight with all different types of weapons, celestial and mace, club, sword, spear, all the divisions of normal weapons, he's also able to use the proper tactics of war. So he knows how to form the armies in certain formations to defeat other formations. He knows how to use the different advantages of an opponent. So he's very experienced in all these different features of war as described in Dhanurveda. After Maharati, there's another division called the Ati Maharati. An Ati Maharati is one who's considered equal to 12 Maharatis, meaning he's 8,640,000 soldiers he could fight with at once. Yeah, that's a lot. And then the last division is a Maha Maharati, one who is considered equal to 24 Atiratis. Ati Maharatis, sorry. He's capable of fighting 207,360,000 soldiers at once. Yeah, so this is just an unbelievable, unimaginable amount of strength that these people have. Now it describes the different divisions and who in our history held those positions or those titles. So we're going to go from the greatest to the smallest. So a Maha Maharati is an ultimate class of warrior, means the ultimate person. And obviously this is taken from someone who is not Vaishnava describing this. And he says that so far, the only two people who hold this is Shiva and Kali, because they're able to destroy the entire universe in a blink of an eye. Right? So that's a Maharati. Obviously, but they're looking as incarnations. So Krishna, when he expands into this material world, what level of prowess he exhibited didn't reach the Maharati stage because he never had to destroy the entire universe in one go. Shiva does. You understand what I mean? But that's still not the Maharati. That's still not that level. He's not exhibiting that much strength. That's what I'm saying. The entire universe, Sanjay Prabhu, the entire universe in one go. It's still not. I think Jarasandha, he would come with 12 Akshahinis at a time, right? 12. Yeah, but even if it was 50, it still wouldn't reach a Mahamaharati. That's the strength, right? Then Ati Maharati, a warrior in the class possessed all kinds of celestial weapons, right? Like the Brahmastra, the Brahmashira, the Pashupata, and all these different weapons that are exhibited. So the different people who had held this title, obviously, is Parashuram is considered the Ati Maharati. Parashuram, obviously, he destroyed 21 generations of Kshatriyas alone, not with the army, on foot, with his axe, his bow, his sword that he had, and he would just run through the armies and just destroy them all, right? So he was considered the Ati Maharati, right? And he was present both through Ramayana all the way to Mahabharata. So he's in both. Because when they describe these two, it's obviously describing the two biggest battles, Ramayana and Mahabharata. So it's who were present in those two. Then Indrajit, the son of Ravana, is also considered Ati Maharati during Ramayana time. And then Krishna, obviously. Krishna was there, and Lord Ramachandra, of course, was there. So those four people throughout history held that position of Ati Maharati, that very, very powerful people. Krishna, it's described here, he's put into that category because of Sudarshan Chakra. Sudarshan Chakra is also has the power to destroy every other celestial weapon and any other opponent, doesn't matter of their prowess level. So Sudarshan Chakra is immensely powerful, way beyond anything we can imagine. Then a Maharati. So warriors in this class had mastery over all kinds of common weapons, also possess celestial weapons. This is not necessarily that every Maharati must possess celestial weapons, so it's not that you have to have it. So the people in the Ramayana era who held the Maharati title were Ram, Lakshman, Hanuman, Sugriva, Vali, Jambavan, Ravana, Kumbhakarna, Atikaya, the son of Ravana, were all Maharatis in Ramayana time. Yeah? And during Mahabharata time was Virat, Drupada, Drishtaketu, Abhimanyu, Arjuna, and on the Kaurava side was Bhishma, Drona, Karna, Ashwatthama, Virasena, Bhagadatta. Yeah, those were the ones who were on the Kuru side. But it is specified that according to Vyasadeva, Bhishma, Karna, and Arjuna were equal to 2 Maharatis each. Yeah, so they weren't just a single Maharati, they were double as strong as a Maharati. But they didn't yet reach the Ati Maharati level. Then the Atiratis during Ramayana time were Angada, Bibhishan, Love and Kush. It's interesting that they're here. Love and Kush. Love and Kush. They were Atiratis during Ramayana, and during Mahabharata was Drishtyadumna, Kuntiboja, Gatotkacha. And Gatotkacha were the Atiratis. And we also have Shalya, Kripacharya, Kritavarma, Yuyutsu, who were Atiratis. And then Ratis, just normal Ratis, were Nala and Nila. Nala and Nila were the 2 monkey soldiers of Sugriva who constructed the bridge, right? They were more focused on their mystical powers. They had the power to change the weight of different objects. So they were powerful soldiers, obviously, Ratis, very, very powerful. And then was Shikandi, Uttara, Nakula, Sahadev, Bhima, and Yudhisthira were Ratis. And on the side of the Kauravas were Shakuni, Jayadrath, Duryodhan, and his 98 brothers were all Ratis. But it's specified that Bhima and Duryodhana were equal to 8 Ratis each. So they're way more powerful than just a normal Rati. So this is all the divisions of different warriors. And you can see in Mahabharata when it's describing the power of different people fighting and how they fought in the different ways, then that's how they're measuring the power and how Vyasadeva is separating them according to their prowess. Right? Bhima, he would fight with many, many millions of soldiers at a time, but he wouldn't necessarily go for the powerful chariot fighters. Right? He would go for the elephants. He would go for the infantry soldiers. And he would just mow them down like a lawnmower, just going right through them and destroying all of them. Right? And Duryodhana also very, very powerful. But you can see here the prowess that's described by these different people and the amount of practice they must have dedicated to this, right? It's described in Dhanurveda, the different divisions of how much time you spend a day doing certain activities. If you want to become proficient in bow shooting, you have to do a certain amount of arrows you have to shoot a day. You have to perform certain rituals. You have to chant certain mantras. And so just to become proficient in one activity, how much time we have to dedicate. And so we have to understand the 1 hour, 45 minutes or 2 hours of japa and our little bit of seva isn't, how would I say, a good amount. It's the bare minimum. If we want to become proficient in our devotional service, if we want to receive the mercy of the Lord and actually become very practiced and capable in it, we have to dedicate more time, more effort, just like these different personalities did to become expert in warfare, to become expert in fighting, to become expert in what they did. Another point I thought I would mention is about mantra siddhi. So mantra siddhi is something that was used during these times to call or to use astras, to use celestial weapons. And mantra siddhi means that the mantra of the astra was given to you by a bona fide spiritual master, and that mantra you had to chant, depend on the astra, was billions of times, millions of times, hundreds of thousands of times. You had to chant and worship that astra on your own. It means not at the time of a battle. It wasn't that you heard the mantra and automatically you were able to use it. No, you needed to please the deity of the astra on your own, and only once the deity was pleased with you, then he would come at your call when you needed him. Yeah? So when we chant our Mahamantra, right, we know the power of the Mahamantra, that we chant it once sincerely and it can purify the whole universe. Mahanidhi Swami actually did a little document on Mantra Siddhi, and he's talking about how the power is and how Mahamantra is exempt from it, and how Mahamantra, a single time chanted, has the power to purify the whole universe, right? But that doesn't mean we should take it for granted and not chant it with the sincerity and the desperate nature that when we need the Mahamantra, it will come to us, right? We'll be able to think about it. We'll be able to chant in our time of need, when we're going to leave this body, or when we are in time of distress, that we'll actually focus on the Mahamantra. For that, we need practice, and for that, we need to chant all the time, every day, with great sincerity, like our life depended on it, right? So we know the power of the Mahamantra, but we shouldn't take that for granted. That I don't need to chant. When at the time of death, I will chant the Mahamantra and I'll be liberated and everything will be fine. But no, we need to chant every day, 16 rounds minimum, and focus on our rounds and give it that attention, just like our life depended on it. So that day when we do need Krishna's mercy, well, we always need Krishna's mercy, but when we leave this body at that moment of death, we'll be able to pray to the Lord sincerely after many, many years or many lifetimes of practice. So this is something I thought I would speak about. Today is also the very great appearance day of Vakeshwara Pandit. Shri Vakeshwara Pandit ki jai. So who amongst you knows anything about him? Yes? You've heard? Okay, wonderful. So we do know a little bit. Okay, so Vakeshwara Pandit is a very, very close associate of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He took part in Gaura Lila mainly after Mahaprabhu took sannyas while he was in Nadia. There's also some pastimes in Puri, but mainly was in Nadia after Mahaprabhu took sannyas. So Vakeshwara Pandit is most well known for his singing abilities and his dancing abilities. There's descriptions of him dancing for 72 hours straight, non-stop. There's descriptions of him accompanying Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and singing for Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the house of Srivasacharya, also in his preaching in Nadia. There's descriptions of Mahaprabhu singing while Vakeshwara Pandit danced, right? So there's a very, very amazing personality, and in the spiritual world, he's actually Tunga Vidya Saki, so he's a very close associate of the Lord. One of the pastimes that I thought we should talk about is how he gave mercy to the devotee called Devananda Pandit. So Devananda Pandit was Prabhupada describes him as an expert or a professional Bhagavata reciter. And he was very proficient and knowledgeable and extremely learned, but he was taking Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, describing Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam from the impersonalist point of view, which is very difficult to understand when we're speaking of Bhagavatam. But he was taking it in that very just dry and fact-based and little bit impersonalist way of speaking. But still he was speaking Bhagavatam. And so before the advent of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he was speaking in a gathering, and Srivasacharya, Jai Nrsimha Bhagavana Ki Jai. Srivasacharya came and he sat in this assembly and hearing the verses of Bhagavatam, not listening to the purport of Devananda Pandit, but hearing the verses of Bhagavatam, Srivasacharya began to exhibit ecstatic symptoms. So he started crying, he fainted. And the disciples of Devananda Pandit, seeing Srivasacharya exhibit these symptoms of ecstatic love, thought he was simply trying to attract attention to himself, and he was making a disturbance. And so they picked him up and actually threw him out of the assembly. And Devananda Pandit, being there and seeing this, he took no action to stop it. And so therefore he was implicated in offending a Vaishnava. And so later on, much later, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in Nadia, he was walking, and he heard Devananda Pandit giving discourses on Bhagavatam from distance away from his house. And Devananda Pandit, I should also mention, he was a classmate and great friend of the father of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So obviously he was way more senior to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by age, right? So he was hearing, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was hearing Devananda Pandit's discourse on Bhagavatam, and he became enraged because Devananda Pandit was giving so many misguided and misinterpretations on the meaning of the slokas of Bhagavatam. And so Mahaprabhu came close to his house and entered the assembly, and it's described in Chaitanya Bhagavat. I'll read exactly what Mahaprabhu said. It says, with sharp words the Lord said, "What does this fellow know about the meaning described by the Bhagavatam? He will never know the Bhagavatam even in many lifetimes. The Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the literary avatar of Krishna himself. The Bhagavatam promotes bhakti as the ultimate goal of life. The Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is the essence of the 4 Vedas. It is the literary form of divine love. The 4 Vedas are like milk. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is like butter. Sukadeva Goswami is the churner of the butter, which was eaten by Parikshit Maharaj. That Sukadeva Goswami, who is dear to me, knows the meaning of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. In this Bhagavatam, Sukadeva expresses the truth about myself. He expresses my own opinions. Me and my servants are glorified in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. One who finds a difference between myself and my servants will find all his good intelligence destroyed. An irreligious person who rejects bhakti and finds some other meaning in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam will never understand the Bhagavatam." The Lord again said, "All the scriptures sing of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam as being highly mysterious, inconceivable. It cannot be understood by vast learning or powerful austerity. One who attempts to know the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam through scholarship will never understand it. One who recognizes the Bhagavatam is non-different from the inconceivable Supreme Controller, knows the essence of Bhagavatam, and knows that the essence of the Bhagavatam can be known only through devotion and not through scholarship. One who understands that Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and Krishna himself can understand Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. One can only understand the Bhagavatam's meaning through divine love. If one wants to understand this, he must serve both the book Bhagavata and the devotee Bhagavata." So this point that Mahaprabhu mentions at the end about the book Bhagavata and devotee Bhagavata, Srila Prabhupada points out in so many different purports and discussions. How only through a devotee Bhagavata one can understand Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, and therefore it's so important to hear and learn Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam from a living devotee Bhagavata, right? Prabhupada points this out all the time. So after saying this, Mahaprabhu left that place. And not many years later, but a couple of years later, there was a pastime in which Devananda Pandit, he heard that Mahaprabhu took sannyas, he heard that Mahaprabhu went to Puri, he heard many wonderful pastimes of Mahaprabhu, and he began to repent. He began to repent that Mahaprabhu was in Nadia, he came to his assembly, and he didn't take any action to associate with Mahaprabhu or surrender his life. He began to understand his mistake. He began to understand the great status of Mahaprabhu and how he's the Supreme Lord and how he should have taken advantage when he had the opportunity. And so entering into this little bit more humble state of mind and understanding his mistakes, Devananda Pandit started to seek out the association of Vaishnavas. So it happened that one day Vakeshwar Pandit was doing a wonderful kirtan there in Nadia, and Devananda Pandit, hearing that Vakeshwar Pandit would be there, immediately went there to associate with him. And when he arrived there, he saw that Vakeshwar Pandit was dancing and dancing and dancing, and seeing him exhibit the ecstatic symptoms of love, he became so overwhelmed and so enamored seeing Vakeshwar Pandit dancing. But he also saw that the crowd of devotees that assembled there to see Vakeshwar Pandit, everyone was trying to get closer and closer to Vakeshwar Pandit to be able to see him. And so it would have disturbed the dancing of Vakeshwar Pandit. So Devananda Pandit took it upon himself to stop the crowd and make sure they weren't bumping into Vakeshwar Pandit and keeping them quiet so Vakeshwar Pandit wouldn't be disturbed. And this went on, it says, at least for 6 hours, if not the whole night. And when Vakeshwar Pandit finally, being overwhelmed with the dancing in the holy name, he fainted and he laid on the floor. Devananda Pandit went there, put him on his lap, his head on his lap, and cleaned him, cleaned the dust and the sweat from Vakeshwar Pandit's face. And being pleased with him, Vakeshwar Pandit blessed him, that may you achieve Krishna Bhakti. And so Devananda Pandit was delivered by the mercy of Vakeshwar Pandit. And after, when Mahaprabhu came back from Puri to Nadia, Devananda Pandit again took the opportunity to go and see Mahaprabhu, but he was very scared to come anywhere near Mahaprabhu. So from a great distance behind the crowd, he paid obeisances, and he was looking at Mahaprabhu through the devotees, didn't want to approach closer. But Mahaprabhu saw him and called him out and said, you have received the mercy of my dear Vakeshwar Pandit, and so you are completely forgiven, and you are considered a devotee now, part of our community. And so he was able to come close. Mahaprabhu gave him personal instructions and gave him mercy. Through the mercy of Vakeshwar Pandit, through that simple service to the devotee Bhagavata, as Mahaprabhu mentioned. So by serving the devotee Bhagavata, Devananda Pandit was able to understand the book Bhagavata. Even after he learned it from so many scholars and like that, he never understood it because he never performed service. On top of that, he offended a Vaishnava, a devotee Bhagavata. He was not able to understand the true purport. And this is described so many different places by Srila Prabhupada. Yeah, there's also many disciples of Srila Prabhupada who got the opportunity to personally serve him. They said that being with Srila Prabhupada was like seeing the pages of the Bhagavatam come to life. Everything that's described about a devotee and how a devotee acts and the way his mannerisms, the way he talks, was shown in Srila Prabhupada. The way how he very individually dealt with every single devotee. Every single circumstance was dealt in a very particular and personal way. Shrutikirti Prabhu, he mentions that Srila Prabhupada, when he was on the Vyasasan, when he was giving lectures in assembly, he was sastra. He was 100%. He was fact by fact. Whatever was in the book, he would preach with full conviction, and everything would be exactly to the point. But when he was dealing with individual devotees, all there was forgiveness, understanding. That it was full personal. This is your problem. This is what you dealt with. Okay, this is what you did. Let's fix it. Let's deal with it. Continue performing service. Continue doing your devotional service. Let's find a situation where you'll be peaceful so you can continue doing your devotional service. It was seeing the Bhagavatam come to life, the forgiveness feature of a devotee. Hariswari Prabhu talks about this book Bhagavata and the person Bhagavata so much, and he spoke so much about Prabhupada's being and who he was, and everything was so clear. When you read Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, it was how do you apply it in your life? That's how you apply it in your life. This is the person. This is how you have to live. And we see that in Bhagavad Gita when Krishna describes a devotee, a pure yogi, someone who's surrendered unto him. Arjuna's first question is, how does that person look? What does he do? How does he act? How does he talk? How does he walk? Because Arjuna was saying, how does such a person how do you recognize such a person? So searching for a person Bhagavata, a devotee Bhagavata, a spiritual master who can show you how to apply Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam in your life is extremely important. And by serving such a devotee Bhagavata, we'll be able to understand the book Bhagavatam. So this is something that I thought was very particular about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's statement in this pastime with Vakeshwara Pandit. Vakeshwara Pandit's personal deities, or most dear deities, his pranadhana as described, is Shri Radha Radhakanta, right? And they're still being worshipped in Kashi Mishra's house, right? Near Gambhira. And those deities are still there being worshipped by the devotees. And so we can pray to Vakeshwara Pandit to have a taste in the holy name as he did, and to be able to dance in the kirtan and become purified as he was, not for fame or gain or attention, but simply out of love of God as he did. He got to dance while Mahaprabhu sung. I mean, when I read that was very special. I don't know how many other devotees is described like that, but he was dancing. Mahaprabhu enjoyed his dancing so much that Mahaprabhu would sing while Vakeshwara Pandit would dance. So this is very amazing. So on this day, we can ask for his mercy. Shri Vakeshwara Pandit ki jai. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. Are there any questions? And please some comments. Yes, Prabhu, Ramananda Prabhu.
This is a technical question of this description of the power of this ratis.
Yeah.
I thought I understood that fighters, they only fight with equals. So meaning a Maharati fights only with a Maharati and not with
Infantry.
Not with 5,000 foot soldiers, because what can they do? And it's like, how you say, mowing the lawn.
Yeah, mowing the lawn like Bhima would do.
Yeah.
But it's described that there's particular instances, in Dhanurveda also this question came up, and in Mahabharata it's also described that, like Arjuna, when he was chasing Jayadrath, right? He was killing a full Akshahini on that one day. A full Akshahini is the division of many, I think it's 1,700,000 or something like that. And so it's not that they're fighting one-on-one, they're all attacking at once. And because they're all attacking at once, the Maharati has the ability to fight them all at once. And so he is fighting with an equal of that many number, understand? So it's in that way it evens out. There was that Nilata Kavachas, I think they're called. Those they're basically the historical kamikaze soldiers, that they all vowed that on this day I will kill Arjuna or I will enter fire. And so they were fighting with that determination to kill Arjuna, and Arjuna was just wiping them out, hundreds of thousands at a time, right? So they were very powerful. Those Nilata Kavachas weren't just normal infantry soldiers. Some of them were on horses, some of them were on foot. But they were very, very powerful soldiers. Doesn't matter. Like Bhima, when he's on foot, he's not a normal foot soldier. But he would fight foot soldiers on foot with his mace. So it evens out because of the number. And so therefore, it's still fighting with an equal in that way. Even though they're not equals, because who won at the end of the day? But yeah, like that.
So could we understand like that they basically fought still under instruction? I mean, it's when we think of a medieval battle or something like that, then it's just chaos. Everybody hacking everybody, but they did kind of in an order way.
Right, order way. Yeah.
But then when they started to fight in the night time, you know, when the Skadukach thing and all came,
then chaos.
and then were chaos, right?
Yeah, absolute chaos. That night was just an absolute mess. After, I mean, you hear the weapons that started being used, and on Duryodhana's side, it's not so much described, but there was many demons on Duryodhana's side, many Rakshasas, Vidyadharas, many powerful Yakshas and Daityas fighting for Duryodhana. All the kings are described, but there's many demons who are fighting for him as well. And they started using all this black magic and incantations and blood pouring from the sky and so many different things they were doing. And so Gadotkaja was counteracting them with his own prowess. There's so many descriptions, but that night, yeah, everything went out the window after that happened. But that's the interesting thing. That's same like it's described in the purport, that even though they're in a battle formation or in a battle situation, they're still behaving like human beings. They're still, you know, appreciating the qualities of their enemy, still fighting according to the norms and regulations. It's very, very amazing that way that they're able to take themselves to such a how would I say, uncontrolled situation, but still follow the rules and regulations. That's through their purity. And something else that your question brought up in my mind is that Dhanurveda also describes how perfect the way of battle is, that everything is so individual. The bow is made according to the size of the person. The arrows are made according to the person's hand size. The thread, the chariot is made according to his arm length, a certain distance, depending what kind of chariot he likes. Right? It's also described like, when was it? When Prabhu was here, he was describing about Bhagavatam, and he brought up the point about the chariot, Krishna's chariot, and the different sounds it made. In Dhanurveda is described that the different chariots had different sounds, and the people who made the chariots had the ability to make the chariots to make different sounds. So one would sound like thunder, the other one would sound like a lion, like a tiger, like a bear, and they would construct it in a certain way. So when it drove, it would rattle, and there would be bells, different sounds, different size bells. And so just the sound of a chariot could make someone faint out of fear. Just the sound of the chariot of those great Maharatis. So,
They do this in new cars as well.
yeah, exactly. They're looking for that sound, that perfect sound. So they were able to do it back then as well, and they did it to a much greater extent. There's also described not in Dhanurveda so much, but there's the story of Nala and Damayanti, that when Nala became the servant of the king, because he was a very powerful Maharati, he knew how to make regular horses be able to fly. He had the ability. And so he was able to find the particular horses that he needed, and he was able to ride that chariot, because the king had to get from one distance to another distance within that day, or he would die because of the curse. And so he asked Nala, and Nala knew how to do that. And so Nala got the chariot ready and flew across the earth so the king wouldn't die and perform a certain yagya. It was a whole mess. But they had that ability, they had that knowledge, they had that purity that they could do those things. So yeah, this is our history, and it's very amazing. And we can look at it and get all enamored in the nitty-gritty and everything, but what I try to take from it is how perfect Krishna's system is, and how perfect it was, and how amazingly difficult it was for these people to achieve this level of skill, and what kind of dedication they had. Just to be able to use one astra, the amount of purity and focus you had to be able to get that astra's mercy, right? It's like, I know the mantra for Pasupata astra. That doesn't mean I can use it right now. I wasn't given by a proper person, and I'll never in my lifetime be able to chant it enough times to get the mercy of Lord Shiva. So it's like, it's insane, the amount of dedication these people had, and the purity and focus, and what we need to do, what we can't take for granted what we have, and we need to focus and give it equal amount, at least, of focus and practice to our Krishna consciousness. I have to work harder. It's very amazing. Any other questions, comments? Narayani Mataji has one.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
I have two questions. One is regarding about sincerity. You mentioned when we are chanting our japa, we need to be sincere. But what does it mean to be sincere?
Okay, Prabhupada, in many different places, he describes the meaning of Mahamantra in different ways, but one that's the most consistent is that we're asking for Krishna for service, to engage us in service, for his mercy in service. And so when we're chanting, we should be expressing to Krishna our sincere desire, not that we're just chanting absent-minded, not thinking about what we're actually saying. We should be thinking about what is our intention while chanting, thinking about Krishna, and sincerely asking for something. It's like if you want something, one Maharaj talks about it like that. He says, if you want a big donation, let's say, or you want to ask a big favor from someone, you're not going to be like, hey, pass me that pen. You're going to be like, Prabhu, I need you to please give me $1 million, like with great sincerity, because it's something you really need, and it's a big favor. And so when we're asking Krishna for mercy, it shouldn't just be like, give me that. It should be with sincerity that we actually really want. And we understand it's a big task to purify our anarthas, to go back to God. It is a big task. And so we have to ask with that sincerity, like our life depended on it, with great sincerity, beg Krishna for mercy. Yeah. So that's that understanding of sincerity, that we have to understand what you're asking for, the importance of what you're asking for, and then really focus on that when we're chanting.
Thank you. And the second one is, how can we practice forgiveness?
Forgiveness. So there's many different forms of practice of forgiveness, and there's many different stages, let's say. Right? We can forgive and not forget. We can forget and forgive. We can forget and not forgive. And then later on, we see that person and we're like, hey, I remember you. You did this to me. So there's so many different, but the best way to practice forgiveness is to see when we have some misgivings towards a person, or we can see something that we don't like, or something happened that we didn't like, and be able to actually forgive in a true sense of the way, that we have no longer any bad feelings for that person. And a way in which we can get there is different ways. One way is understanding that it wasn't that person personally doing something. It was Krishna's arrangement, that you had to go through that one way or another, and he was just an instrument in that, right? It was your karma to go through that, and therefore it kind of detaches the personal, that person has something personally against me. Another way of understanding it is that you're not in control of anything. And so you're not in control of how that person will suffer because of his bad activities, and he's not in control of the way that you suffered, right? And so understanding that you're not in control is a way of also detaching yourself from trying to hurt that person back for something he did. Because you're not in control, he's not in control, right? So whatever happened was Krishna's arrangement. And so in that way you can forgive, because it's something that you had to go through, and it was simply that person was the instrument in which it happened. So it just depends how big, or how would I say, how severely the person offended you or did something to you. And so there's different stages in which you can go through to be able to forgive. If it's something small, it's easy to forgive, right? Also by appreciating a person. You don't like the person because he did something to you, but I still appreciate that he's sincere, that he likes to do a certain service, that he does a certain service very well. Then you can start appreciating the person, and like that, say, okay, so he's not all bad. He took my dhoti, but he's still a good person. He's still a nice person, right? She still, does her service nicely. And like that, be able to appreciate more and more qualities. And so that small little bit of mistake that you did, or he did, will you'll be able to forgive. So it basically depends on the size of what happened, and then seeing what step can get you to that point where you no longer have any bad feelings towards that person, and you forgive them sincerely. Yeah. Make sense? Yeah. But yeah, understanding that we're not in control is a big one. Understanding that that person is just an instrument. Whatever happened, even doesn't matter how personal it may have felt, conspiring, so many other things, it's very difficult to then understand that, no, but it's Krishna's arrangement. You had to go through that ego, smashing your ego, or, defamation, that someone, speaks bad about you. It's something very difficult to tolerate and very difficult to get over. But when you understand that it's Krishna's arrangement, and you really think about that and understand, then that person has nothing to do with it. And Krishna will take care of him however it's supposed to be. But we're not looking in the rest of your life, you're like, did it happen yet? Did he go through something? Oh, he got hurt. Okay, now it's done. It's good. It's done. Now I can forgive him. No, not like that. Make sense? Okay, good. Any other questions or comments? And Sanjay Prabhu, on your point you were saying about Krishna and Jayadrat and Krishna and Jarasandha, like that. These are all amazing and huge battles on this world. But Krishna, in his form of Krishna, didn't show that level, right? But Krishna is time. There's nothing more powerful than time. Krishna is, as Nrsingadev, there's nothing more powerful than Nrsingadev, right? So obviously this is written by someone who wasn't a Vaishnava, but if you're looking simply at facts and numbers, then yeah, it falls more into this scope of warriors. But we have to understand that, Krishna is, Matsyadev had a whole city in one of his fins, and it didn't even bother him, right? The amount of power that such a person has. Kurmadev, the entire, what's the name of the mountain? Meru? No, is a different one he used for turning. Kurmadev, on his back, the mountain. It was Meru. I had Mandara something. Anyway, right, huge mountain on his back, right? The amount of power that Vishnu Krishna shows in every one of his incarnations. Trivikrama, Vamanadev, right? His toe pierced the top of the universe. What to speak of destroying a whole army? But when you're talking about battles, Ramayana, Mahabharata, Krishna, then it falls into this category. Make sense? Little bit. Yeah, I guess so. It's okay. Okay. Yeah, it's many, many millions. But still, it doesn't. Yeah. Yeah. He just, this is enough. But what's cool is that, I'm not sure if Srila Prabhupada describes, or I forgot, I was listening to a lecture that Jarasandha was actually a great servant of Krishna, because Krishna came to this world to destroy the demoniac beings, and so Jarasandha was basically like a vacuum cleaner, collecting them from the earth and bringing them to the fire of Krishna for destruction, and then going again, collecting, and bringing to Krishna. So he was basically sweeping the world of all these dirty people and bringing them to Krishna for purification. All right, Krishna would have to travel around the whole world finding these people. Instead, Jarasandha was collecting them. Krishna didn't have to go anywhere. Just come to your door, Krishna destroys them every single time. So in that way, Jarasandha was a great devotee of the Lord and helped the Lord in his mission. Jai. Okay. Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai Nitai, Gaura Premanandi.